All right, so get ready because this deep dive, it's a creepy one. Like, seriously creepy. We're talking about the flying head, and after you guys sent all that stuff over, let me tell you, this thing, it's the stuff of nightmares.
Yeah, it really gets under your skin, doesn't it? And the fact that it pops up all over Iroquois territory, like different versions, but all unsettling, it really shows you just how powerful these stories were, how they stuck around.
Okay, so picture this, right? We're talking about a giant, and I mean giant, disembodied head, way bigger than a person, with these crazy eyes, just blazing, wild hair. Oh, and did I mention the fangs? Because, yeah, razor sharp fangs. This thing does not skip leg day or head day or whatever day it is that giant flying heads work out. So where did this thing crawl out of?
Well, that's where it gets interesting, because we're not talking about like one single origin story here. It's more like pick your poison. Every community seems to have its own take on how this thing came to be.
Okay, so hit me with it. What are our spooky backstory options here?
So some stories, they'll tell you that this creature, it was born from violence, right? Like pure brutal violence.
Yeah.
Imagine a severed head, but instead of, staying put, it grows, gets huge, and it's fueled by this like pure rage.
Talk about holding a grudge. Yikes. So are there any other origin stories that take a different approach? Because I gotta say, starting with a giant vengeful head already has me hooked.
Oh yeah, for sure. Some of them connect the flying head to cannibalism. It's kind of like a warning.
Yeah.
Don't give in to the darkest impulses or this is what you get.
So it's not just a monster, it's a consequence. Okay, I'm sensing a theme here. But didn't you say there's also like a wind connection? How does that even work?
Right. So the Iroquois, they often connected flying heads to these powerful whirlwinds. Some names for the creature, like Dagwananian, literally mean whirlwind, if you can believe it. It's almost as if those sudden crazy winds were like an embodiment of the creature itself.
So is it a vengeful spirit? Or like Mother Nature's warning system? Honestly, at this point, I'm not sure which is scarier.
See, that ambiguity is what really gets to you. It's like that fear of the unknown cranked up to 11.
And you know what else is a little too close to home for comfort? The story of Captain Gill and that whole Sakanica Lake thing.
Oh yeah, you mean where the flying head legend gets a little too specific for anyone with a healthy fear of disembodied heads?
Exactly. This Mohawk guide, he claims the legend started at Sakanica Lake. And get this, he says there was a tribe that used to live on a hill there, but they're completely gone now.
Gone, but not forgotten, right? Because that hill, it's supposedly cursed. Captain Gill even said any hotels built there mysteriously burned down. And you know how these stories spread.
Okay, so we've got a creepy story, possible real-world consequences, and a big ol' question mark where the answers should be. Honestly, what more could you ask for?
Well, I don't know about you, but I could use a nightlight after all this.
Okay, so we've got this vengeful, maybe a cannibal, and possibly wind-powered, lake-dwelling terror. I'm guessing this thing isn't just hanging out in the woods for fun, right?
Well, it's important to remember that in many versions of the legend, the flying head, it isn't alone. We're talking about a whole race of these creatures.
Hold on, a whole race, as in more than one giant disembodied head just roaming around? Yeah, I'm with you on that nightlight thing now. So what are they even doing out there?
It's pretty straightforward, actually. They're hungry.
Anything in particular? Asking for everyone listening, obviously.
Let's just say humans are definitely on the menu.
Okay, that tracks. So that brings us to one of the wildest parts of all this research, that story about the famine and the elders.
Ah, yes. That one really sticks with you. It's like a classic, be careful what you wish for story, but with a terrifying twist.
Totally. So we've got a tribe, they're dealing with a terrible famine, and the young men, they want to pack up and leave to find new hunting grounds. Makes sense, right?
Right, but the elders, they're like, hold on, not so fast. They're urging the young men to stay put.
Okay, that's got to be a tough sell in the middle of a famine. What was their reasoning?
So, they believe that the famine, it's not just bad luck, it's a punishment. Like a cosmic consequence for something they did or didn't do in the past.
And I'm sensing a but coming.
But the young men, they've hit their limit. They're desperate. So they do something pretty drastic.
Ah.
They kill the elders.
And here's where it gets really unsettling, right? Because the flying head, it's not just a random creature that shows up. It's a direct result of what they did. Talk about your instant karma.
It's true. And there are a few different versions of this part, but the core idea is the same. That flying head, that's all on them. their choices, their consequences.
It really makes you think, though, doesn't it? Like, was the flying head always going to happen, or did they make it worse by not listening to the elders?
Right. It's like this story is forcing us to ask some pretty tough questions about morality and responsibility. There are no easy answers here,
Yeah.
which is part of what makes it so powerful, you know?
It's like this story isn't just trying to scare us, it's making us think. Okay, but all that existential dread aside, the real reason we're all here is to find out. How do we get rid of this thing?
Well, luckily for all of us, the legends actually offer not one, but two surprisingly effective methods for dealing with a flying head.
Okay, I'm listening. Or maybe I should keep my ears covered for this one. Hit me with it. What's the secret weapon?
So option one plays on the flying head's, shall we say, lack of intelligence. According to some legends, the Iroquois would roast chestnuts over campfires. And the flying head, well, it sees those glowing embers and gets a little too excited.
It's like the ultimate junk food craving.
Pretty much, it swoops down to gobble up those hot coals thinking it's getting a treat, which, probably doesn't end well for a giant flying head.
Yeah, I'm guessing fire resistance isn't really their thing.
Not so much. The hot coals burn the creature from the inside out. Poof! Gone in a puff of smoke. Or maybe flames is a better way to put it.
Talk about a serious case of indigestion. Ouch. So what's the second way to deal with a hungry head?
This one is even more interesting because it suggests the flying head might be a little smarter than we give it credit for. It all comes down to a woman, a campfire, and roasted acorns.
Roasted acorns. Okay, I'm officially intrigued. How do those even factor into a monster fighting strategy?
So the flying head sees this woman eating what it thinks are hot coals, those acorns, and it freaks out. It's like it's afraid of getting burned or maybe even respectful of the woman's bravery.
You're saying this terrifying creature that's supposed to be like a whirlwind of destruction was scared off by someone eating roasted acorns? That's amazing. And also kind of makes me want to keep a bag of acorns on hand just in case, for emergencies.
Right. Who knew acorns could be so intimidating? But seriously, it's this really fascinating twist. This creature, which, let's be real, represents some of the most primal fears of the Iroquois people, is defeated not with violence, but with cleverness. I don't know about you, but I find that really inspiring.
It's funny. We started with this image of a giant, terrifying head, and now I'm kind of impressed. Like, acorns? That's some next-level monster fighting. But there's one thing we haven't figured out yet. What actually happened to this thing? Did the flying head just, disappear one day?
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? The sources we've got, they're surprisingly quiet about how it all ends. Like it just faded back into myth.
So it's a real mystery. 1 minute, it's terrorizing everyone. The next, poof, gone. What do you think happened?
That's the beauty of these stories, isn't it? It's up to us to decide. Maybe it did go down in a blaze of glory, thanks to some well-placed hot coals. Or maybe, just maybe, it's still out there, lurking in the shadows, waiting for its next meal.
Okay, now you're just trying to give me nightmares. Although, maybe it developed a taste for acorns and went totally vegetarian. A gentle giant with a heart of oak. I kind of love that ending, actually.
Right. I like to imagine it peacefully munching on acorns, maybe even helping some lost hikers find their way. A reformed monster for the win. But jokes aside, this whole idea that the story is never really over, that's what makes it stick with you.
It's true. It's like these stories, they force us to confront our own fears, They make us think about the choices we make and the consequences that come with them.
Exactly. And ultimately, they remind us that sometimes the scariest monsters aren't the ones we can see, but the ones we create through our actions, our fears, our choices.
Well said. Well, folks, there you have it, our deep dive into the wild, weird, and surprisingly thought-provoking world of the Iroquois flying head.
It just goes to show you never know what you'll uncover when you start digging into these legends.
That's right. Big thanks to everyone who sent in their research on this one. And remember, if you've got a creepy creature you'd like us to investigate, just head over to our website and let us know. We'll see you next time.